So with that, I'm going to bring up Justice Mitchell, who has served on your Supreme Court since 2018, and he's going to offer some closing remarks. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to take just a moment to acknowledge what an incredible day this has been. Over the past several hours, we've heard from a nonstop lineup of some of the greatest voices in the conservative legal movement. These are the people who have built our movement from the ground up, both at the national level and right here in Alabama. Of course, this all culminated with our keynote speaker today, Justice Clarence Thomas. And while Justice Thomas couldn't be here in person as originally planned, I think we were all blessed and edified by the virtual conversation that he had with Chief Judge Pryor. You know, Justice Thomas is often described as the greatest living originalist. And that's true, but I actually think it's an understatement. Justice Thomas is more than that. He's the greatest living American, and in my opinion, it's not particularly close. Everything about Justice Thomas embodies the virtues that this country was founded on. And he has a life story that is unparalleled by any public servant today. He was born into dirt poverty in Pinpoint, Georgia. He withstood not only pervasive racism in the American South, but one of the ugliest public race-baiting campaigns that has ever occurred at the national level. And through his own hard work and perseverance, he became one of the greatest legal minds this country has ever known. Yet amazingly, despite encountering an endless succession of obstacles, as we saw today on the Zoom call, he is not remotely bitter or dispirited. In fact, it's the total opposite. As everyone who knows Justice Thomas will tell you, and there are a number of people in this room who have worked closely with him through the years, he is one of the most gracious, joyful, and selfless people you'll meet. And those qualities, more than anything else, are what all of us in this room should aspire to. So I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that this conference has featured one of the most impressive lineups of any FedSoc chapters event in America. Right, Lisa? Would you agree with that? Not bad for our second annual conference. You know, people have been coming up to me today saying, how are y'all going to top this next year? I mean, what could you possibly have in store for year 3? Well, they've got a point. We probably won't top it next year. And we're not trying to. Because our movement is a marathon, not a sprint. It's great to blow out of the gate early if you can, and we've done that in our first 2 years with this conference. But then you've got to settle into a pace. And our pace is about improving the legal culture here in Alabama. That's the goal we're running toward. And everyone here has a role to play in running that race. The law students, the academics, the practitioners, the public policy makers, the judges, the law clerks, all of us. And I want to take a few minutes here as we close to offer my 2 cents about how all of us in each of our unique roles can do that. First, for the law students who are here, y'all actually have to pace yourselves the most because you've got the longest to run. Spend these formative years doing just what you've been doing over the last several hours, soaking up as much knowledge as you can and taking every opportunity to learn from successful practitioners, your originalist professors, and judges who believe in the rule of law. You can also start taking steps to push the legal culture in your school away from the debased authoritarian culture that seems to be festering in so many universities these days. But as you're doing that, you have to do it responsibly. Save the edgy tweets for after you've gotten tenure or made your millions or survived Senate confirmation. You'll make much more of an impact that way. Keep your nose to the grindstone. Cultivate strong bonds with people who share your values and make wise decisions. The rest will follow. For the academics who are in the room, Y'all are in the incredible position of being able to influence both the current generation of judges through your scholarship and the next generation of lawyers through your teaching. In your role as scholars, you have the chance to make a big impact on the law in this state by writing articles focused on state law, especially, as we were just hearing about from Justice Peterson here on this panel, the original meaning of state constitutional provisions. There is a massive shortage of scholarship on state law questions, even though these questions are where most of the legal action takes place. And when it comes to the original meaning of older state constitutional provisions and statutes, the parties often don't have the resources, time, or historical expertise to provide us with helpful briefing. So you have a chance to shape how state courts think about these issues, and I encourage you to capitalize on it. In your role as teachers, I encourage you to do what I was just counseling law students to do. Fight against the strain of ideological conformity that has taken hold at so many universities. A big part of this means sticking up for your students and your junior colleagues when a cancel culture mob comes after them. And don't let your students fight these battles alone. Help them. Stick up for them. They look to you to lead by example. For the practitioners, if you think that there's not much room to drive the conservative legal movement in the context of private practice, you're wrong. You can simultaneously advance conservative legal principles and your own career by simply making good textualist and originalist arguments in your briefs. I can't tell you how many losing appeals at my court could have been winners if the lawyers had simply looked over a copy of Reading Law before filing their briefs. You can also help advance our project by shaping the culture at your law firms. Just as law students and academics have the opportunity to change university culture for the better, you can change the culture of the legal profession and corporate America. A big part of this cultural change can come from simply following Nancy Reagan's advice. Just say no. Say no if your partners or clients ask you to do something that you believe to be wrong or know to be illegal or unethical. Have the courage of your convictions and be willing to prioritize your integrity and your commitment to the rule of law over short-term profits or career advancement. Your conscience and your community will thank you for it one day. For the legislators and policymakers, you have more power here than any of us. Practitioners and academics argue about the law, and judges, we do our best to interpret it. But you make it. That's an awesome power. When you're exercising that power, I'd encourage you to be thinking about the principles we've been focusing on here today. The importance of textual clarity, of correcting erroneous judicial precedents, and of legislating in a way that is faithful to the original meaning of both the state and federal constitutions. I've saved my last few words for the judges who are here today, and I'm thankful that so many judges are here. If you're a judge attending a conference like this, chances are that you understood the importance of textualism and originalism before you even walked through the door. But something we as judges don't always appreciate is our unique role in forming the next generation of lawyers. If there's one message I hope my fellow judges take away from this conference, it's this: your mentorship matters. Our keynote, Justice Thomas, is the perfect example of the power of judicial mentorship. When he started at the court 3 decades ago, originalism was on the fringes of the judiciary. Few judges described themselves as either textualist or originalist. So few, in fact, that litigants often didn't even bother trying to appeal to these judges in their briefing. But thanks to the influence of Justice Thomas, along with the late Justice Scalia and Judge Bork, that's changed. Within the last decade in particular, Justice Thomas's clerks have helped to remake the judiciary along textualist and originalist lines. Former Thomas clerks have been confirmed to the 4th, 5th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and D.C. circuits, as well as federal district courts across the country. And they've served as solicitors or attorneys general in states across the country and at the federal level. This conference today is a perfect illustration. Justice Thomas's former clerks and mentees have been featured on every panel we've heard from today. As judges, the most important thing we can do outside of deciding cases is to take a page out of Justice Thomas's book and continue to cultivate a commitment to the rule of law with our own clerks. So to sum up, before we all head through those doors and go to the bar, let me just say we all have a role to play. And the ideas and the relationships that we've been cultivating in this room today are things we will carry back with us to our cities and towns and throughout our careers. Hey, everybody, we are hitting our stride in Alabama. Let's keep up the pace.